control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watch you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at spacedoutradio.com, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Game on! Game on! Game on!
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
The password is...
Alright.
Okay, seriously, what's with the pointies?
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
Seriously, Dave? Really?
Captain, take your seat on my left. It's time for takeoff.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 2, 1, boost ignition, and liftoff.
Just to be there with you, and I still trip over my feet, and my heart still skips a beat. I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. It's good to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this planet we love to call Earth. We are live right here, right now in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the bright white snow of the Great White North, right here on this Thursday night, early Friday morning if you're on the East Coast. We welcome in everyone listening in on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. We do this thing every night of the week, rocking in and out of every show. Thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. If you want to follow me on social media, because I'm a little bit of a social media junkie, follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you got to have some fun. Check out the website. I like it. You should, too. Hey, if you want to take part in this show, you have to sign into one of the chat rooms, because we don't take callers here. No, not at this time. Anyways, if you want to get into one of the chat rooms, just go on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I'll chat with you in there live as well, and make sure all of your questions are in capital letters so I do not miss them. Hey, if you haven't signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it's $5 a month. That's cheaper than a Starbucks coffee, man. I tell you, it's worth it, too, because your name gets entered into monthly prize draws, you get access to private group interviews, access to a special section for posting on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can read up on my latest blog, which is about orphaned listeners in radio today. You can also check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news. And if you've had a sighting you can't explain, all you have to do is fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher, Mike Schmidt, is going to find out what's going on with you. Hey, we want to welcome in everyone listening in live on Renegade Talk Radio in Sin City itself. We are the nighttime entertainment of Las Vegas for those who aren't partying in the casinos. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride with us. And remember, if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. One of our favorite channelers is back on Spaced Out Radio tonight, as it's been a number of months since Barry Strohm was on with us. The last time, Barry and his wife were channeling the Spirit Moo, who joined us for a session in answering some questions on the Spirit Board that Barry and Connie use. Tonight, they will work the board to see what comes out. They'll give us some answers as well. Barry, an accomplished author, has almost completed his 5th book, which he will tell us about. From conspiracies to alien contact, Barry, through the Spirit Board, has learned a lot about what's out there, from life after death to what's hiding in the stars. Channeling, whether it's through a Spirit Board or oneself, is a pretty difficult task. And you have to have a solid connection on the other side that's willing to help you out. It's not for the untrained, as weird as that may sound. Barry and Connie are pros at this, and we will talk about what it's like to communicate with the spirits on the other side. Barry Strohm, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. It's been a while. How are you?
I am doing great, and it's an honor to be back. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure to always have you on the air with us, because that's kind of how we roll things around here.
You are doing some high-speed rolling right now. I enjoy it.
Well, I'm trying. Not as big as where we want to be. You know, we want to be out there a little bit more, but hey, it's coming in strides, and that's the main thing.
You are making some big strides. I do not see how you do this every night. It's amazing.
You know, it's funny. I was just talking to a friend moments ago, right before the show, and I suffer from depression and anxiety, and sometimes it gets the best of me. And earlier on this evening, it was getting to me. And my good friend was like, well, what do we got to do to snap you out of it? And I said, I just got to get on the air. And sure enough, here's my buddy Barry Strohm on the air, and I know my friend is listening. So thank you for what you did. And we got Barry here, so now my energy is pumped up. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling sprite. And off we are running. Off we are running, my friend. So how have you and Connie been?
We've been good. We've been good, fighting the colds like everybody else, but trying to keep busy. Do a little bit of channeling here. My new book just came out a couple of weeks ago, so that's been keeping me busy. And we got a new one ready to go to the publisher, which will be book 5. And I think that'll be quite interesting. That should appeal to you. That's another one on extraterrestrials and aliens and all that good stuff.
Well, I like my aliens, my friend. I'm a big-time alien fan. That's
Indeed.
just
Indeed you are. And we got it'll probably be a year till we see it, but I'm just finishing up. But we've got a lot of really incredible information in there.
Well, you know what? The one thing about ETs is we always got to see what's going on with them, because they're unpredictable. They are unpredictable, and you never know what they're going to do. And you know what? I haven't seen one in a while, so I'm getting a little anxious here. I need some good ET stories. That's why I bring you in here for a little bit of channeling to tell us what's going on.
Well, there is such a thing as alien withdrawal. No, we've gone through it ourselves. Actually, our friend Moo, we haven't seen him for a couple months. He's been off on another mission, and we really haven't been able to catch up with him.
Where do you think Moo is hiding?
He came back about 2 months ago for one session, told us that he was off on a mission and that he was busy, and before we finished the book, he would be back to talk to us. But it's probably been 60 days now since we had him with us. I actually think he's on another planet working. I mean, these guides cover a lot of area.
When you talk about Moo, because since you were last on, we have a plethora of new listeners who have tuned into us during this show. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind explaining what you do with the spirit board and who Moo is. Okay,
no problem. We use a very special channeling board. It's not like a Ouija. It's very different design. The letters are in a circle. We have a glass top on it, and it's all very different. If anybody is interested in seeing just how we do our channeling, they can go onto my website, spiritspredict.com, and there's a whole page devoted to it. There's a page you can go in and see the prayer protection we use. We always start every session off with a prayer. We end it by thanking our guides at the end of it, and we have had some amazing luck. About 3 weeks ago, we channeled with a fellow down in South Africa, 8,100 miles away, and gave him a bunch of personal information that there was no way we could have known. So the spirits come in, we spell out their messages, and we always are recording everything on video and audio, so we have a record of it. And we get these messages, and at this time we've done well over 400 hours of channeling with spirits on the other side, and at this point I've written about 5 books off the information that they've given me. Moo is a special spirit. When we started getting an interest in aliens, they introduced us to him, and they said, you need to talk to this spirit because he can answer all your questions because he is one. And I said, one what? And they said, an alien. And the next time in he comes, and it turns out that Moo died in 1987. It's a spirit of an alien. And as I found out, aliens have the same souls humans have and go to the same heaven that we do. Moo came in, and we have had tons of sessions with him. He's given us incredible information. I wrote my first book based on information he gave us, the first on the alien book that I did, which was Aliens Among Us, Exploring Past and Present. That's been out over a year now and is on Amazon. He is a blue alien, comes from the planet Robe, stands 9.5 foot tall. Very cool guy. I mean, we've become very friendly with him. We actually miss him when he's not around, and we're hoping he soon comes back to us.
I'm sure he will, because he never stays away for long. So next time you speak to him, tell him all of us at Spaced Out Radio say hello and that we miss him.
I will do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how is life at the Haunted Antique Store?
Just about as haunted as ever. It's a crazy place here. I was doing another radio show last week, and it was midnight, kind of late, and I'm always very aware of security around here late at night. And I checked everything, I went outside, and as I'm locking the door, I hear this woman's voice very loud in my ear say, "Hi." And I jumped around, and there was absolutely nobody there. One of our ghosts just knocked something off the shelf here for us.
Did that just happen? Because I heard that.
That was, yeah.
Really?
Yep, just happened. That was on a flat shelf up there.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. So please stop.
What fell?
Maybe that was loose.
Yeah, maybe that was a jewelry display that fell off the top of my closet here. It was laying on a flat shelf. Maybe that's Moo telling us he's back. You never know. But no, you heard it. That was, yep, uh-huh.
You know what's funny is
welcome to Golden Lane.
just last week we were having a show here, and we ended up going overtime. And during overtime, we were talking about extraterrestrials as well. And I actually had my chair that I sit on in my beautiful, illustrious Uncle Jimbo's cabin, actually shoved twice. And I have never, in my 5 years plus of being involved in this field, I've never had something like that happen. I've never been touched, I've never been scratched, I've never been shoved or punched or had my chair moved, and I had my chair shoved twice. And now usually, like tonight, my trusty dog Douglas is sleeping right behind me. So I thought maybe he had snuck in to the studio here, and usually he lies really tight to my chair, but I'm looking all around. No, it's not him, it's not the cat. It was kind of weird when that happened. So to hear, things now falling off your dresser or your closet there, I think we might be in for a damn good show tonight.
You never know, but that was definitely on cue, wasn't it? It was. Now I see him every night when I'm in here doing a radio show, but that was on a flat shelf, and it just kind of came flying off and hit the ground just as you were talking about them. So they let you know that they're here with us.
I'm ready to play if they are. And if any one of them. So you know what? Now what we have to do is we actually will now have to listen to see if anything comes through. Yeah,
well, generally I can turn my ghost box on and talk to them anytime, and you can hear them. It's really not a big deal here.
Well, you know what? It's always fun when it comes through the show. And when it comes through the show and we have things happening, like a couple months ago, we had the guys from Chronicles of the Unknown, a Canadian paranormal team here, and it was funny, while we were talking about spirit, the voice of a man actually came through one of the microphones. And, on Skype, because we use Skype, you can see when someone's talking because the little blue light goes around their picture. And none of the pictures lit up. It was kind of cool when that happened. So it's all good.
Oh, yeah. No, you ask, and they let you know that they're still here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
believe me, that was not scripted because we both jumped.
Well, you know what? I hope our audience heard it just as much as I did in my headphones, because that makes the show so much more fun when we get activity when the show is happening. Now, for the skeptics out there, and you know who you are at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, they'll say, oh, that stuff just kind of happens. Oh, that's all radio stuff, crap like that. We don't play that game around here, so, when it happens, we try to make sure that it's natural. We're not force-feeding anybody anything paranormal here. I have a question for you from Eric in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker right off the bat, and he's saying he did hear it. Eric says, Barry, do you think that owning antiques in one's house opens the door to haunted activity?
Absolutely. No question about it, especially mirrors, if you have old mirrors. I have a whole wall downstairs that I put mirrors on, and it's a wonderful portal. I mean, we can go downstairs and watch the spirits come through those mirrors any time of the day. But there's definitely spirit attachments. They love mirrors. We've sold haunted oil paintings that would actually talk to us. Yes. And it doesn't just have to be antiques. It can be modern items too that the family members were close to when they were alive. People don't really realize how many spirits are around them continuously. Sometimes they will appear, they will let their presence be known, like just happened here for us, because that came off of a level shelf on top. I have like a closet thing with a flat top on it where we keep our office gear, and that was a jewelry display that was lying flat up on top of it, so it had to be pushed. There was no way that thing came off. They have ways of letting us know.
Might have been the lady you were talking about.
Yeah, and it's funny. It was just as I was telling you the story of the lady saying hi to me. So it could have been her again. You never know.
Eric is following up his question saying, I have an antique wishbone mirror dresser that belonged to my grandmother, and it has the original mirror in it.
Yeah, say hi to your grandma, you know.
Yeah.
It's because you never know when these spirits are around. I mean, everybody thinks that, you know, you call them in, but basically we've found out spirits are with us all the time. It's just a matter of asking, because it's a matter of there's no time or space with it. Just like when we're on Skype in South Africa with a guy and we're talking to his spirits, those dimensions are far different than the three that we're used to. There's many other dimensions out there, and the spirit world is amazing. I mean, we can have 5, 6 spirits with us in a room at a time. And I just saw another one over my shoulder behind me. At least that one didn't make any noise. But it's, they really enjoy it when I do radio shows. I mean, I'm here, but I don't think I ever do a show that I'm not aware that I have a spirit presence in here.
Dino is asking, what is it about mirrors that makes them so haunted?
I do not know, but I can absolutely guarantee that you can create portals with them. They go in. I have cameras on them all the time down there, and you watch the big orbs will go into the mirror. You'll see them disappear into the mirror, and you'll see them come out of the mirror. And it's just, they love them. I don't have a full explanation. One of the best apparition pictures that I ever took was a ghost looking over a man's shoulder in the mirror. And we thought it was another woman standing there looking. When we first saw it, it was part of a professional investigation. And she is so clear that nobody believes it's a ghost. And I absolutely guarantee it's a ghost. I mean, but no one. I have more trouble having people believe that photograph. I also have that up on my website. I have a whole page of apparition pictures on spiritspredict.com. You can go in. I have one page of angel pictures showing pictures of angels that I've taken. And I have another page dedicated just to apparition photography that we've done. So you can see a lot of this stuff on my website.
John at hashtag Space Out Radio would like to know, what is the difference between the board you use and a regular Ouija board?
Our board is loaded with protections. We actually have our prayer protection fastened to the back side of it. A Ouija board has got is just simply a board surface. We have a glass surface on ours. The planchette on a Ouija board has got felt on 3 points. We actually use a small hot-poured quartz beaker. And Connie and I will put our fingers on that, and that thing will absolutely fly around. Sometimes during a session, we get letters so fast that it's hard to even write them down to keep track of it. But mainly the big difference is the protections that we use, the faith we have, and above all, we absolutely never ask for evil to come through. And if we ever have any question of it, we simply take our fingers off the board and end the session. So we are very, very careful what we do, and there's few people in the country who have channeled on boards more than we have.
Do you ever use anything else besides your board to channel with, like a pendulum or a psychomantium?
Connie can talk to her prior life brother anytime she wants with a pendulum. Now her brother Bert from prior, for some reason he won't talk to us on the channeling board, but he'll talk to us on a ghost box or he'll talk to us through her pendulum. So she does pendulum work. I use a ghost box once in a while because, as I say, it opens the door to some spirits that don't want to come through on the board. But besides that, those are basically all the tools, the communicative tools. I'm reaching a point that I can start to hear them. And sometimes I can see them, but I've been really practicing at that. And that's an acquired taste, so to speak.
Coming through on Twitter at hashtag SpaceOutRadio, Mogboy is asking, what is the most startling revelation you have received from the board?
The most startling revelation that I've ever received. Oh my God. He's got to keep in mind, we've channeled with 3 apostles. I think the most amazing thing that's ever happened to us on the board is we had guests in one night. And the woman guest, we'd never seen her before, but she wanted to come in because she wanted to try. She was very, very troubled. Her son was very sick, had surgeries, has to go into the hospital once a month for treatment. And she had been seeing a bunch of light figures, little light things that she couldn't explain. And she came to us to ask what she was seeing. And all of a sudden, the Blessed Mother comes in. She had been praying to the Blessed Mother to help her son. And all of a sudden, this energy changes, and I was on the board with another psychic. Connie was taking notes. All of a sudden, both of us have tears coming down our face from the energy. And the Blessed Mother comes in and simply gives her the message that I want you to know that I am always with you. And then she leaves. But it was like the wildest sensation that you can imagine. The energy was just phenomenal during that session. And I think that's probably the most memorable thing. I mean, even though we've talked to St. Bartholomew, St. Andrew, St. Timothy, Pope Sylvester I, there was Pope when they selected the Gospels, George Patton, Jack Kennedy. I have an incredible list of spirits that we've channeled with, but I think when the Blessed Mother came in for us, that was the most memorable moment I've ever had.
No kidding. How do you confirm, Barry, that the spirit you were talking to is actually the true spirit and not someone on the other side playing a trick on you?
Well, you have to be very careful. And it does happen. We get lower energy spirits come through all the time for us. When I'm doing, like, for instance, when I was doing the conspiracy book, I would go and I would do tons of research on the subject. For instance, when I knew we were going to try to contact King Richard III. So I went in and I had a whole bunch of questions to ask him so that he could prove that it was indeed the spirit we were talking to. When King Richard came in, I said, you need to tell me something to prove that you truly are King Richard. And he spells out the word Farthingay, which happened to be the castle where he grew up. And I had known that from my research. And when that's not a word that you exactly pull out of your butt. So I knew we had we indeed had the spirit of King Richard with us. And we went on, had a wonderful session with him, spoke to us in Old English, used the I's and the nays and what you would expect out of somebody from that period. But when we did George Patton, I had a bunch of questions made up for him, and I even tried to trick him with some questions. And man, he nailed it right away when I tried to throw some curveballs at him. So we test very heavily, and anything that you see in this new conspiracy book that I have, we have really checked it out historically before we went ahead and used it in a chapter.
Now, you have well over 400 hours on the Spirit Board. If somebody from my audience was sitting right beside you, what would they be looking at? What is your setup like?
Well, they would see a square. The board is about 20 inches square. They would see letters in a circle. They would see commands. They'd see the words yes, hello, no, message for goodbye. And we have an RST message on it, and that means rest. Quite often when we ask for a spirit presence, they'll go to rest, and they got some kind of a paging system over there, but they mean just wait a minute, and you wait about 30 seconds, and all of a sudden the thing will start moving again, and they have that spirit that we asked for. Once we start doing this, they would see Connie and I, we each put our fingers on the crucible, and it's only about an inch in diameter, and they will see that thing just start to move around. When a new spirit comes in, quite often you'll see the crucible just go around the letters, because the spirit actually has to learn to use the board, and he's looking for the location of the letters that they want to use to spell out words. So quite often when we have a new spirit or guide come in, you'll see this thing just circle around the board several times until they get familiar with the location. And then we'll ask a question, and you'll see it'll go to the letters. And as it goes to a letter, I will call out the letter. If it's just Connie and I have to use the video and audio camera. I'll call out the letters, and it'll record on the camera. And then at the end of this, after we're done, I'll have to come back and transcribe it. Generally, we're doing it with 3 people, where one person takes notes and 2 of us are on the board. But they would just see that thing fly around, and they'd be utterly amazed at how fast it moves for us. In a 2-hour session, I'll get almost 4 pages of typewritten transcript out of it.
Wow. So when you're sitting there, you're really prepping for a session on who you want to talk to. You're not just going on for 10, 15 minutes of fun. You're literally going for, almost lack of a better term, an interrogation of the spirit.
Absolutely. I will have pages of questions made up. Right now, I'm trying to finish off the new Alien book, and I actually have 13 pages of questions made up for follow-up in different categories. So depending, for instance, if Moo would come back into us, I have questions that I would use for his follow-up. If we use the other guides that have been giving us information, I have questions by category for that. I'm starting to do a book on unsolved crimes. We just did a session on D.B. Cooper, so I had made up a whole 2 pages of questions on that subject. And then for 2 nights before we were doing the session, I prayed for a guide that could give us information or for his spirit to come through for us. And then I'll ask for that guide or the spirit if it's available. And in Cooper's instance, we didn't have his spirit, but we did have a guide come through that was familiar with all the aspects of what happened.
Do you still have fun with it?
Oh, I love it.
Or has it become a job?
No, I love it. Every time we sit down, it's an adventure, because we have, and when we do it with guests, we tell them we have absolutely no control over what's going to take place. We'll find out that situations have been set up for us. For instance, when I did the chapter on George Patton, I thought that I had made up all this stuff, and then once we got into it, I found out that Patton had arranged to come through for us, and it was all set up. Where I thought I was asking for him, he had actually chosen me and was coming through. It was just kind of humoring me, making me think that I was behind it. And no, it's an incredible experience. It's something that you just simply can't describe. I mean, who has had the chance to talk with Jack Kennedy? You know, who's had the chance to talk to Butch Cassidy? What an experience! Think about it. That you can act, and it really is the spirits of these individuals that live these great lives.
Do you mind if we get to a couple more questions from our audience?
No, go for it.
All right. Matt is asking, when you disconnect from the board for the night, have you ever had spirits just latch on and stay connected without your will?
No. Once we find it simply taking our hands off of the glass will disconnect. And we always thank them. We always thank our guides at the end. We thank the spirits for coming through, and we always say God bless to them, and it cuts the session off. Our guides look out for us; they really do. we've had negativity come through, and the guides have shut the session down. All of a sudden, it just goes dead. You can't feel any energy. The glass won't move, and you know you're done for the night because something that was not good attempted to make an appearance.
Mm-hmm. So you almost have protecting spirits on the other side of what you were doing then.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We have one master that I have a guide named Raz, R-A-Z, and he will come through for most of what we do. And he'll hand it off to another guide for different information if we're working in different subjects. But he will assist spirits coming through for us. For instance, when we channel with our animals, which we can do, he is usually the guide that passes on the animal soul messages for us. We've got multiple guides. One night I had a whole bunch of different questions, and as it turned out, I asked what guide we had for the night, and the answer came back, a panel. And as it turned out, on that night, we had about a dozen different guides come through to give us information on different subjects. Not one guide. One guide doesn't know everything. I mean, that's a misconception a lot of people think when you channel a single guide comes through. There are guides that know different information. There are guides that specialize in different subjects. And when we're dealing with a different subject, they'll bring that guide in for the evening. That's why I always start by praying a couple nights before and letting my guides be aware of the subjects that I want to work with. And it's incredible how it works out.
Do you ever get scared? Do you or Connie ever get scared?
I don't know. No, and I don't. Well, I will admit I jumped when that thing flew off the shelf a little bit ago. But I'll be startled, but I'm not scared, if you know what I mean. There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. That I can understand. Let's get to another question from our audience. This one is coming from Seth, and Seth is asking, to what extent are spirits allowed to know certain things? What is the time limit to things they can't answer or will not answer?
For instance, they'll never tell you your time of death, so you can't answer that. They can look into the future for you, and they will never answer a question that will change the path of history. For instance, I'll ask when there's going to be, for instance, an act of terror. We've had the answer, they've given us the answer in generalities, but not enough that I could interfere with history. I'll give you, for instance, the Boston Marathon bombing. Before it happened, we were told that when winter turned to spring, there would be a bomb attack. And that was all the information they would give us. And then here comes the Boston bombing. And sometimes they do it in parables that I will misinterpret what they tell me. But they will never give me anything that will change history. They won't tell your time of death. They will give you personal information. They'll give you some idea what your karma path is. They'll let you know whether you're on your path. They'll give you hints about what you need to do to correct for what you're here for. I mean, I'm asking all the time whether I'm on mine, and they seem to be fairly happy with Connie and I, what we're doing. They'll let you know. Quite often they'll let you know whether you're ever going to find your true love, or whether you have a soulmate that you're going to find. There's a lot of information they will give, but there's an awful lot of information that they won't. And sometimes skeptics will look at the fact that you cannot get certain information and say, I told you so, you're just bullshitting with us. But there's information that they won't tell you. If you hit a subject that they can answer, they will.
How do you know that the information that you were getting is accurate? How do you know that it is foolproof on what they are saying? Like, do you take that information and then go back in history books to define whether or not that could have happened or that did happen? How do you verify it?
I can historically verify my last two prior lives. They gave me in both of those lives, they've given me my name and prior. In one in particular, I have no trouble tracking the name. I fought at the Battle of Gettysburg, second and third day, and they gave me a lot of information about where I fought, the regiment I fought with, and I have actually been able to go out onto the battlefield with a ghost box and talk to the spirits of the soldiers that I fought with out there. So, I mean, I've really been able to tie my prior life histories down. But, quite often, a lot of people, when they say their prior lives, they were Cleopatra or something. Most guys were not famous people, and it's hard, and it's really, you got to kind of accept some of this with some faith. But I know in my own personal instances, I have been able to nail my prior life history historically.
Very interesting. Another question from Trip. He is asking, Barry, what's your thoughts on a planchette with an EMF meter in it, or maybe the letters on a board connected to an EMF meter?
EMF meters are not reliable. I mean, sometimes they will definitely show a spirit presence. I've had multiple sessions where I could communicate with spirits by making it blink once for yes, twice for no. If they want to emit that energy, they can. But I have laid an EF meter next to my channeling board, and it has never gone off through a session where we've channeled for 2 hours. A spirit guide will never give off the energy of an ordinary earthbound spirit. You'll never photograph a spirit guide where you can photograph earthbounds when they're in apparition form. No, I haven't had an EMF meter in my hand probably for a couple years now. My old standbys are the board, a ghost box, and a pendulum. Those are things that really do work.
All right. So let's talk about what you go through on a daily basis. How often are you doing this?
It depends. Believe it or not, I'll wake up with a message that the spirit wants to talk to me. Then we'll, Connie and I'll jump on and we'll do it. When I'm trying to finish up a book, we'll probably do it 2-3 times a week. Some weeks we don't do it at all if we don't have anything going on. It depends. When you know you can do it anytime, there's not a lot of urgency to it. If for somebody that would come in for a single session, that they feel that urgency and they have to do as much as they can. But we've just literally done so much of it. I guess we're starting to take it for granted. And I know when you take anything for granted, the guides are going to slap you in the back of the head. So, but it depends. Like we're both coming off a cold, so we haven't done it for a week now because we haven't felt real good. And if I'm feeling negative, I won't do it. If something goes really wrong here at the store, or something's got me upset, or I watch too much Fox News or something like that, then I won't try the board. You have to. Negativity weighs you down any which way you look at it, and you can tell a difference in how the messages come in if you're in a negative humor. Now, it doesn't bother Connie. She's always in a good mood, so she's always here. But
True.
I'm a little moody, so sometimes I got to play it by ear.
Let's get to it. A couple more questions here, because I know we have a lot of information to cover today. Tammy is asking, Barry, do you have any tips for a person to connect with a past loved one? She would love to connect with her grandmother to know what it was that she wanted to tell her prior to her passing. Tammy never had a chance to find out because she went into the hospital, Grandma that is, and never came out. And it has weighed on Tammy heavily ever since then.
What she needed, the first attempt she should make is in her prayers ask her grandmother to come to her in her dreams and tell her. Now, the most efficient time to try to contact the spirit is in your pre-sleep state. You know, that state where you're falling off to sleep. Try to hold that state, and in your mind ask for the grandmother to come through. Sometimes you can get messages like that. If she can't manage to contact herself, then she needs to get a hold of a reputable psychic, and there are some very good ones around. Check out their reputations. Don't go onto these lines of Psychic R Us or something like that. But check around. There's some very, very reputable psychics, and maybe they can help. And there's going to be a time that Connie and I are going to offer Skype board channeling sessions when we get a little more spare time. And I will announce it on my newsletter. Try to come into my website, sign up for my newsletter. And when we decide to do this, I will put it out on that newsletter or on my Facebook page. And maybe we can work something out to try to help her sometime in the future.
Not a problem. Dino is asking, who have you enjoyed channeling the most?
Oh, boy. Most enjoyable. I really like channeling with Butch Cassidy. He was really very intelligent, very nice, very great manners. Jack Kennedy was wonderful to channel with. When he came in, I asked him, I said, would you like me to, when you realize that you've actually got the real spirits of a past president, it is kind of overwhelming. And I asked him, I said, how do you want me to refer to you? Would you like me to call you Mr. President? And he comes back and he says, no, just call me Jack. And he was incredibly down to earth to talk to, gave us all the information, told us who pulled the kill shot, where it came from, how it all worked. And actually told us some other things from his personal life. And it was a real fun interview. I enjoyed talking to General Patton. He is, when you talked with the general, you knew you were talking with a man of true authority and very knowledgeable, very to the point, just like he was in life. And I had 3 interviews with him and enjoyed all 3 of those. It's really hard to put your finger on it. These guys were all amazing individuals in life, and they still are on the other side. All they did is cross over the veil and give their bodies up. Their soul energy is still the same.
That would make sense. Trip has a question for you. What are your thoughts, Barry, on people acquiring antique Ouija boards and planchettes? Can energies claim a board or a planchette, in your opinion?
I don't think so. If you pray, your defenses are only as strong as your own personal faith. If you don't believe in God, and if you don't believe that you're being protected, then there are evil spirits that can come through. And when you're using a Ouija board, you're opening a channel. When we're using our board, we're opening a channel. But we have incredibly strong faith in our protections, and it's worked for us. People have to be careful. You ask for evil, you're going to get it, and you're going to regret it. So it's if you ask for evil, no matter what your faith, you're going to get it in the butt, and you aren't going to enjoy it. So whether one board can be permanently associated with evil, probably can, just the same as we have spirits associate themselves with mirrors or oil paintings. So I'm not saying you can't, but you have to be very careful in what you're doing.
Eric is wondering, Barry, do you think that just because you were quite connected to the paranormal, like everyone who is listening here to Space Out Radio, do you think this increases activity to occur?
Oh, yeah. One thing we do with all our ghosts here at the store is we let them know that they are very, very welcome to be here, that we enjoy having them around, we enjoy communicating with them, and we treat them as our friends. I will not let I get requests all the time for people to come in and do a ghost hunt here. I won't let them come in because, for one thing, you don't have to hunt for them. I watch them on our security cameras every night. But second of all, these spirits are our friends, and we treat them as such. And since we treat them like that, they respond in a friendly manner. And I'm not going to let anybody come in here and insult them, like that crap you see on some of the ghost shows where they try to antagonize them to bring them forward. And we allow none of that. We treat them like our friends, which is what they are.
Let's move on here, because we have a lot of subjects to tell. Your latest book, Spirits Speak of Conspiracies and Mysteries, what made you write this one?
As I started speaking with these different spirits, we started getting information. For instance, in my Afterlife book, we channeled several times with Ulysses Grant. And during one of the sessions with Ulysses, we started talking about the Lincoln assassination. And he wound up telling us who was behind the assassination of Lincoln. So all of a sudden, I start to realize just how wrong most of the history books are about all these incredible events that took place in the past. And I started just asking more and more questions about it. And the more I got involved, then I started doing some research in conspiracies. And I would do the historical research and start to ask the questions. And I found out that I could get the answers to them. And I would be investigating conspiracy in one direction, and all of a sudden they'd be taking me in directions that I never imagined. For instance, when I did the Lincoln assassination, I was simply wondering who was behind hiring John Wilkes Booth. And then I find out the biggest part of the conspiracy was that John Wilkes Booth wasn't killed in Virginia after the assassination. And he actually lives a full life and dies in 1903. And his story is so much stranger than fiction. And they would give me the names and places, and I could actually go online and do the research and back up what they told me. And I even found a picture of Booth in his casket in 1903 that was in the U.S. Archives, which is part of the book. But I just became so enthralled with all these conspiracies. And there are so many of them. Lord knows there's no shortage. I had to stop writing the book because the book was getting too long. I ran out of book space before I ran out of conspiracies.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You have to be going for a number 2 on this or something along those lines.
Well, yeah, I'm advancing it. It's the next one is not. The one I've started on is not just going to be conspiracies, but it's going to be unsolved crimes, like D.B. Cooper, Jack the Ripper, John Benet Ramsey. Well, we already covered John Benet in the conspiracy book, but it's going to be all the famous crimes that took place, like the big serial killer, the Zodiac killer in California, and all that. Right. Yeah. No, I've got a list of 35 unsolved crimes that we're going to try to ask questions about. Mm-hmm. That I've already researched these crimes enough to ask basic questions to see whether the guides can give me the names and who was behind it. Like, I'm truly hoping to find out the name of who was Jack the Ripper.
I actually just got contacted by a gentleman in England yesterday, as a matter of fact, who does a Jack the Ripper tour, and he's always on the BBC and some of the BBC networks talking paranormal. And so all of a sudden it's weird that you just bring that up.
Nothing's a coincidence.
No, not at all. But how has the success been for your book? The reason why I ask that is there's a lot of people who are into conspiracies and mysteries. Is it one of those types of books where, when people get it, they're like, oh my God, like, where has this been?
I'm getting some really good reviews on it. When I did the Coast to Coast show a couple months ago and talked about it, and actually for about 2 weeks, the thing was #1 in the supernatural category off of it. Barnes & Noble's picked up a couple thousand copies of it. So I think this is, everybody that has looked at this so far has been basically blown away with it. The facts that are in this book are just almost unimaginable. I mean, Jack Kennedy tells me who actually did kill him. George Custer tells me who he felt killed him at the Little Bighorn. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And I welcome the people after they read it to go do their own research, and you'll be shocked. All the names that were given me in the JFK assassination appear in different conspiracy theories. So it's a very unique book. I mean, everybody is telling me that it's a concept that they've never seen before, actually being able to talk to the spirits that lived in conspiracies.
Now, Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpaceOutRadio does have a good point. If the spirits give you names of these serial killers, wouldn't that change history?
No. Why would it change history? The serial killer, I mean, we're talking about, I'm addressing murders that happened 40, 50, 100 years ago. That's not changing history. I mean, I can put these names out, and I mean, the historical effect of it at this point. Now, it's another thing if I get involved in current unsolved crimes, which we had considered working with the police, but I don't think we're going down that road because I don't want to become an unsolved crime myself. So, no, we're pretty careful about what we write about. But no, I don't see any effect that it would have historically by doing these old unsolved crimes.
With some of the information that your books have released, and we are about 2 minutes away from break here, have you had anybody knock on your door or give you that phone call and say, Barry, where did you get that information?
Not yet, but this one's only been out 2 weeks.
We don't want anything like Tom Clancy happening to you. Healthy guy all of a sudden having a heart attack, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't no heart attack. We also looked into that one.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the one that I need to know about because I'm a diehard Tom Clancy fan. Diehard. And I really, really think that one was not just a heart attack, but that's just
I never pursued it for names, but it was not a heart attack.
Well, after the break, you have to give me the goods on that because I'm literally looking at a stack of about 25 Tom Clancy books as I speak here.
Oh, he was great. I loved it. I loved this stuff too.
Absolutely. Now you're tempting me. Now you're tempting me. Now we're getting into it. I'm going to get you to hold on, Barry. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We're going to step out for our first break of the night. Barry Strohm and his lovely wife, Connie, will be back right after this to talk more channeling.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Sam Baltrusis is going to join us. We're going to talk about the 13 most haunted and paranormal everywhere. We're going to talk about the Provincetown Paracon coming up, where I will be a speaker in Boston at Sam's event in May. So I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of traveling and spend some time with you, the Spaced Out Radio listeners. If you can make it to Provincetown, May 12th to 14th, I would appreciate that. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, we get going at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. And, of course, we are live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Talk Radio. We are the nighttime show of Sin City, so I hope you enjoy it if you're listening in Las Vegas, my favorite city in the world, as well. Hey, Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Grandiloquence. Grandiloquence is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, because it's only good for tonight. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find our archives on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for only $5 a month. Barry Strohm is our guest. His wife, Connie, is in the background. No, it's not a ghost that you hear whispering in the background. That's just Connie. She's a beautiful lady. And we love it when Barry and Connie are on the show. Welcome back.
We are here. And that giggling in the background is indeed Connie, yes.
But we did have a paranormal experience happen during the show. And that was earlier on. Something came falling off your closet. That was kind of fun.
Yes. When you're in this building, you absolutely never know what's coming next.
Excellent. Well, you know what? We got a ton of subjects that we have to get to tonight, but I want to quickly rip through a lot of these questions that we're getting from the audience. We're going to start in the Revolution Radio chat room, and this one comes from Olive, and he is asking, do you think, Barry, that orbs could just be cloaked military?
No. I have pictures of orbs with faces that I can actually identify the faces, who they are. Those are spirits. They're not cloaked military. Now, they can be if they're dead soldiers, but no, I don't think so.
Right. Another question coming from KC in the Revolution Radio chat room. How do you know spirit guides let you know they want to talk to you?
Well, if they don't come through. It's pretty simple. It's if we'll sit here and say, "Can we have our guide, please?" and nothing happens, well, I'll know that I pissed them off and they don't want to talk to me on this night.
A couple questions from Twitter at hashtag SpaceOutRadio. John would like to know, do you feel any need for security as you write about these things after exposing, say, assassins like JFK's killer?
We've been told that our Moo in particular told me that they dumb down things for my protection. So I'm assuming that everything they give me is not going to get me killed. I try to be careful with what I do. The good thing right now is with the internet, there are so many other people out there writing about conspiracies and talking about it that I think you have a better chance of remaining incognito right now anyway.
So you're wearing a mask and a cape?
Yes.
Excellent. Just for your own safety, that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We want a good mask and a cape, because you never go wrong with that. Now, right before the break, I asked you about Tom Clancy. Now, Tom Clancy, I'm going to tell you right now, is my favorite author of all time, and I was just absolutely destroyed when I found out about his passing, and it just seemed weird. Okay, here was a healthy guy, I believe, just previous to having his so-called heart attack. He was given a clean bill of health from his doctors during a physical. And Clancy talked and seemed to know a lot about what was happening in the CIA, what was happening with the NSA, along with what was happening around the world. I mean, that man's sources must have been incredible, whoever he was getting information from. And as a Tom Clancy fan, I do have to say that a couple of instances really, really changed my perspective on how he was getting his information. In one book, he was calling Osama bin Laden the Sultan, and this is in the Jack Ryan series, and the Sultan happened to be killed in a bedroom in a house. And of course, that's how we all believe, well, most of us believe that Osama bin Laden was killed in Pakistan. And another instance was after he got done his Jack Ryan series in the War on Terror, all of a sudden he comes up with Russia invading the Crimea. And as a reader, that didn't really make sense to me, why he would go from terrorism back to Russia being the bad guys and invading the Crimea. And lo and behold, 6 months later, Russia invades the Crimea. So when I look at things, I wondered how tapped in he was, and then all of a sudden he died. What do you know about Tom Clancy's passing?
Well, when I asked whether Clancy died a natural death, and the answer was no. And then I thought to myself, Barry, this is one that could get your ass shot for. And I really didn't pursue it much further than that. But he did know, he knew too much. And I don't really know who did the deed, but I don't think it was a natural heart attack from my sources.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the government, in what you've learned, the government took him out? Or do you think that it's because he was just such a prolific figure in what was going on that he got too close to something?
It's one of those, yeah.
I realize at times, and I'll explain to our audience, that due to security reasons, there are certain times Barry is going to be vague about things, because he does have a family and a business and a wife and a home to protect. So we're not going to roughhouse him too much on some of these questions. But I think you're leading down the way that I thought it would happen.
I don't know. I really don't know who was behind it, because I just really don't want to know who was behind it, to be honest with you, in this case. It's much too recent. I have no problem telling you who was behind the Kennedy assassination, because that's pretty far in the past. But
well, you got to you went there. You got to fill us in now.
Oh, that one's easy. It was Lyndon Johnson. He's the one who was behind it. I mean, when Kennedy told him that he was not going to be on the ticket for second term as vice president, Johnson knew right away that he had to act at that time where he would never have a shot at being president of the United States. So when Kennedy told him that put the wheels of conspiracy in action, and he had the mob background that he needed to make it work, and that's how he got killed. But Johnson was definitely behind it.
Were you able to confirm that with Johnson's spirit as well?
No, but Kennedy, I asked him if he ever sees Johnson on the other side, and he says, yeah, that they've made up, believe it or not. So he does talk to him on the other side. But just before, about a year ago, a book was written giving all the proof of Johnson being behind the assassination. So there's a lot of literature out there that points to him now.
So if we can say that Lyndon Johnson is the one who was the setup man to Kennedy's assassination, do we know who pulled the trigger?
Yes, a fellow by the name of Frank Sturgis pulled the trigger, and the kill shot came not from the 6th floor of the depository, but from the roof over top of the 6th floor, so that the angle of the kill shot would be so similar they wouldn't know the difference. And then there was a second shot that hit him from the grassy knoll.
Who was Frank Sturgis?
Sturgis was, I think, as I remember, Sturgis was involved with the mob, and he was the main shooter. And there was another one. Howard Hunt was also involved, and Howard Hunt was actually a member of the CIA at one time. And Hunt did a deathbed confession. You can go online and actually read Hunt's deathbed confession, where he talks about being involved with the assassination.
When you go and do that information then, and you're going through it all, were you able to find out if Lee Harvey Oswald was just wrong place, wrong time, or was he just a patsy in this whole thing? Did he know that he had to be there? What was his involvement?
Well, he thought he was part of it, but he was actually framed. He never got the shot off that did the damage, and he was set up. And then you remember Officer Tippett that was killed as part of the nobody ever realized how Officer Tippett got killed as part of the day. Well, Tippett was actually supposed to be part of the conspiracy, and Tippett's role was to pick up Oswald, and then he was to kill Oswald. Well, Tippett chickened out and didn't pick Oswald up, and that's how Oswald got arrested, and then that set off the whole Jack Ruby thing. And then the conspirators killed Tippett to keep him quiet. So there was a lot that went down with it. Just like right now they've opened the investigation into the death of Dorothy Kilgallen. She was a reporter at the time, and she actually got an interview with Jack Ruby. And Ruby gave her a lot of information, and Kilgallen bragged about that she was going to blow the lid off of the assassination. And then lo and behold, she drops over dead. So there were 4 or 5 other people that were actually killed as part of the whole plan to keep things quiet. They got Ruby to kill Oswald because they threatened to kill Ruby's family, and Ruby was involved with the Chicago crime family. So it's a good chapter. It gives a lot of information. It's worth reading. It'll make you look at the assassination in a different way.
Have you been able to confirm any of this information by talking to people, by talking to other researchers, maybe writers on the subject, or maybe people who just want to remain off the record?
No, I don't try to get that deep into things. They gave me, for instance, they spelled out the name, Sturgis's name. I went online, confirmed that he was part of the conspiracy theories. They gave me the name of Hunt. I went online and I actually read his confession, and everything they gave me tied together. But I really don't do a lot of outside research like that. I read a lot of written materials, but I don't really go getting other people involved with what I do.
Do you think that you would get the truth? Is that why you stay away from it, or do you just trust the board that much?
No, really, I just trust it that much because when they give me a name or information, I can go back and track it. For instance, when they gave me the assumed name that John Wilkes Booth took, they said he went under the name John St. Helens. They spelled that name out. And I could go online and find and track the life of St. Helens as he lived it, and he gave me the name of when he passed, and the stuff they give me is just, it's there. All you got to do is go and look for it. And when you're actually sitting here and you watch that name being spelled out on a board and you never saw the name before, and then you go and tie it all together, it really builds your faith in the process.
I can absolutely see that. Let's get into the whole killing of Abraham Lincoln and what happened to John Wilkes Booth. So take us back in history a little bit to that fateful night when Lincoln was assassinated.
All right, the North and the South finally signed their armistice, and the Civil War is over. And it's 4 days later, and Lincoln is going to go to Ford's Theater to watch a play with his wife. And he is actually supposed to be accompanied by Ulysses Grant. And here's how we got the tip on that there really was a planned assassination. Because I asked Grant why when we were channeling with Grant, I asked him why he didn't go to the theater. And his answer was he was told not to go. And I said, well, who told you not to go? And he wouldn't give me the name in that session. And next time we got together with Grant, I asked him again, and he confided that it was the Secretary of War Stanton that told him not to go to the theater that night. So I start asking some pointed questions about it, and I find out that Secretary of Stanton, as well as the Andrew Johnson, who was to become the new president after Lincoln, he was vice president under Lincoln and would become president if anything happened to him, were the two main conspirators. And that they actually hired Booth and all the other individuals that were involved with it. And Stanton, as Secretary of War, arranged for the escape route of the bridge outside of Washington. that they had military on all but one bridge. And coincidentally, all of the conspirators got out of Dodge, out of Washington, D.C., by crossing the same bridge. And as the story goes, Booth goes down to, he breaks his leg when he's trying to escape from the theater, which was not part of the plan, obviously. He goes down to the Surratt house and gets the bone set in his leg and works his way through southern Maryland and crosses the Potomac into Virginia. And 2 weeks later, supposedly, Union cavalry surrounds him in a barn, and the orders are to take him alive, but this sergeant actually shoots him in the neck and kills him. They bring the body back up to Washington, D.C., take pictures of the dead body, and mysteriously the plates disappear, the autopsy plates. They hang within 2 months, they hang the four main conspirators, so that the old dead man tell no tales thing, and everybody buys the story that Booth was killed. Well, as it turns out, the Union had captured a Confederate captain that resembled John Wilkes Booth. And apparently they take him down, and that's who gets killed in the barn. Well, Booth escapes, apparently never there, and he goes into Kentucky. And while he's in Kentucky, he marries this woman 3 years later. And there is actually a marriage license that is signed John W. Booth in Kentucky, 3 years after he supposedly dies. The woman's son finds out who he is and tells Booth. Booth panics and heads for the Texas frontier. He buys a bar out there, runs his bar, and now he finds out that there is a woman in this town that is going to marry a U.S. Marshal. And Booth is afraid that he will be recognized by this Marshal. So the day that the Marshal shows up, Booth leaves town and goes further out on the Texas frontier. He works as a bartender out there, and some time passes, and Booth gets very, very sick and thinks he's going to die. So he's going under the name of John St. Helens. He does a deathbed confession that he's really John Wilkes Booth, and then a real problem develops because he doesn't die. He recovers from his illness. So now he's in a position that he's confessed that Booth isn't dead, and so he has to leave town again, and he goes up to the town of Enid, Oklahoma. Well, somehow or other, there's an attorney back in Kentucky where he had gotten married to the woman that had found out about this, and he got wind of the story of Booth's confession, and he's trying to track him down. So by 1903, Booth is working in Oklahoma as a house painter, and he becomes an alcoholic. And Booth actually commits suicide. And there is a picture of the body of John Wilkes Booth in his casket that I found in the archives that I included as part of the chapter. So somehow or other, this attorney from Kentucky finds out that Booth is dead, claims his body from the undertaker in Oklahoma and has Booth's body mummified. Now, there also happens to be a picture I found of Booth's mummified body that's in the same chapter. They take the mummified body of John Wilkes Booth and they actually put it on display at the 1904 World's Fair. The attorney dies and his wife sells the body to some carnivals. And Booth's body is shown around the country at carnivals. And the last time that it's recorded that the body of Booth was seen was in the 1970s here in Pennsylvania. But it's an incredible story. He was a showman right to the end, right up into the 1970s. In 1930, a bunch of forensic specialists got a hold of the body and they examined it and they found like 27 points of comparison that were similar to marks or broken bones that Booth would have had. So there's no question he survived it and was a big part of the conspiracy.
How many people do you believe were involved with Lincoln's assassination?
There were many. They told us that there were quite a few that were on Lincoln's cabinet that were involved. Besides Stanton and Johnson, there were some other ones, but they never named the rest of the main conspirators who were behind it.
Was there a reason why they felt the need to take out Lincoln?
Yeah. Johnson wanted to be president. And Lincoln, by the time the war was over, Lincoln was very, very popular. But he had also played pretty loose with the Constitution during the war. And he had made some enemies. And he actually did not get along that well with his cabinet. And Johnson wanted to be president. And coincidentally, Johnson was president for Lincoln, and there was a Johnson that was vice president for Kennedy. So the moral of the story is, if you're going to be president, don't have anybody named Johnson as vice president.
Did you ever ask either Kennedy or Lincoln about all of the strange ties that are between the two?
No, I never pursued that.
I would love it if you could do that. The reason why is, it's simple things like Kennedy shot in a Ford while Lincoln is shot in the Ford Theater. Little things like that. Like, there are so many different ties between the two. It just seems like it's an evolving story a big piece of U.S. history that just will not go away.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of coincidences there, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Joyce is asking, do you think that you would ever maybe get a group of highly qualified psychics together to confirm or deny your information?
Actually, we've had some pretty good, well-known psychics get involved with us, and we've worked with different psychics on different parts of the stories.
Mm-hmm. Have they found that your information that you're getting from the board is quite accurate?
Well, we've had some very well-known psychics come to us to do readings for them. They have great faith in it.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next one, because I know you have a lot of them that we need to get through tonight. The Devil's Vortexes, including the Bermuda Triangle. Are you in belief that these actually exist?
Absolutely. There are energy lines called ley lines around the world, and the Bermuda Triangle consists of multiple intersections of these ley lines where there's an awful lot of energy. And when this energy interacts with certain astronomical phenomena like full moons or intersections of planets where extra energy is exerted, you can have energy vortexes form down there, and strange things happen.
So when these occurrences are happening in a place like the Bermuda Triangle, which is probably the most famous of them all, what is causing ships to disappear, the mysterious military planes to disappear, Flight 19 as we all know them by?
Well, it's Mother Nature does it. One of the natural wormholes can form, and you are transported through time, believe it or not. They're interdimensional. One of the best examples of actual time travel was a fellow by the name of Bruce Gernan was flying a Cessna airplane from Andros to Miami Beach. And there was a lot of a storm front in front of him. Tried to fly around it, couldn't. And he saw this strange opening in the cloud. And he's on the radar over Bermuda. He goes into this cloud, and all of a sudden he appears on the radar outside of Miami Beach. And in order to have covered that distance, he would have had to go over 2,000 miles per hour in a Cessna, which could do 195 miles per hour. And it's an absolute verified instance of actual time travel. Once again, you can go online and read his story. He's got his own website, and it tells what happens to him. But it was a natural wormhole that was formed in the cloud, and it was a small one, so it only transported him a small distance. The Flight 15 of the torpedo bombers in 1945 that disappeared, they flew into a disturbance, but unfortunately it threw them out so far that they couldn't get back. They didn't have fuel to recover. And happens more than people would believe down there.
How far into the future did Flight 19 go?
I think it just took them far enough into the future that it pushed them out over the ocean that they were out of radio range and they ran out of fuel. But I'm not sure how far in the future you could really go in one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind that there are different vortexes throughout the world. There's one up in Alaska,
yes,
and there's one near Japan that's very active. It's just we just hear more about the Bermuda Triangle because we're closer to it.
Let's not forget the Bridgewater Triangle, the Great Lakes Triangle, I believe, in Lake Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it always a triangle, damn it?
You can go in and see these intersections. In my book, I have a couple pictures that show the ley lines and how they work around the world. I mean, the ancients knew about them. They would build things like pyramids on the intersections of these energy lines.
Why do we always seem to see around a lot of these triangles a lot of UFO activity, do you think?
Because I think that the UFOs thrive on the extra energy that's there. I think they're just drawn to the energy. Bear in mind, they're not using a fuel like we do. They're doing things like molecular teleportation, a little bit like the old beam me up Scotty stuff. And I suspect that it would just be a lot easier to do some of the things they do where there's a lot of natural energy involved.
So getting back to someone like Bruce Gernon and the time travel, when he found himself flying over Miami Beach, when I think about that, I think of almost like a time lapse, something that a lot of extraterrestrial contactees experience when they are abducted and they have a loss of time. Do you think that this could have happened with him?
No. I ask a lot of questions about it, and it was a natural occurrence. He got into this natural wormhole, and just pushed himself through time. He only consumed 30 gallons of gas where he should have used 90 gallons of fuel. He was just simply transported through a time warp.
You mentioned this happens a lot more than what we probably know of. Why do you think this is happening, and we're just not hearing about it? Do you think these incidences are far and few between, or do you think that they actually do happen at a frequent basis, but people just aren't reporting them the way they used to?
I think they actually happen more than you give them credit for. I think a lot of people are afraid to report them. In this case, the guy, they had radar readings when he went into the storm and when he came out of it. It's the best documented case of being into a time warp that I've been able to come across.
Well, let's get to another story here, because I know we have a lot of them to get through in the next 90 minutes. The Buddy Holly conspiracy. I know this one isn't in your book. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper were killed on February 3rd, 1959 in a plane crash in Iowa. What do you think happened there?
Well, that was the early days of rock and roll. And people were very puritanical in those days. I can remember when Elvis was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they would only show pictures of him from the waist up. And it was, as I say, these were three of the main guys in the founding of the rock and roll. And the mob also realized that there was some profit that could be made from this new form of music. And apparently they were trying to muscle in on the proceeds of what these guys were going to generate. And the guys didn't want any part of it. And all of a sudden they have a mechanical failure in their airplane and comes down. And it was never really investigated. It just was accepted that they flew into a snowstorm, and that's what caused the accident.
Now, when you were channeling this, who did you speak to in regards to this?
His spirit was there.
His being Buddy Holly's?
Yeah. Yeah, he was actually telling us the story.
So how clear was he in the whole scenario? Like, did they know there was any type of plane error? Or did they know kind of who did it?
Yeah. Oh no, he knew all the background. He was very emotionally upset. Generally, when spirits come through, they're pretty calm. But after he left us, the guide actually told us that he was very, very upset and emotional. He was still upset about the fact that he was killed.
Was he with the other two as well?
No, the other two weren't with him. He was by himself.
So why this? I mean, we're coming on almost 70 years since this happened, or 60 plus years since this happened. Why is he still quite upset about being murdered?
Well, there's no time over there. So he just hasn't gotten over it.
Just that simple?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Sometimes spirits are very upset by how they die. Sometimes they're so upset that they let them reincarnate and come right back. And sometimes spirits just simply want to get their story out. It took King Richard 500 years to get his story out.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirits have to be able to find a channel that they can speak to and have their words recorded. And we've been very blessed in the fact that they come through to us and tell us their story.
Mm-hmm. Was he upset that there was absolutely no investigation into the tampering of the airplane?
Yeah, that was a big part of it, because he felt that if they would have looked into it, they would have realized that there was tampering.
That sounds pretty cut and dried.
Yeah, it was really tamped down. Today you would have had the federal government come in and look at it and a whole bunch of stuff. But in those days, the police just looked at it and said it was a natural accident. It was snowing. It was a light snowstorm that they flew into. And they just simply blamed pilot error on it.
Mm-hmm. Eric wants to know, just to ask about King Richard here for a second. Was the king responsible for walling his nephews up in the Tower of London?
No, and that was the big thing that he wanted known, that he was in no way responsible for the killing of his nephews. That it weighs heavily on his conscience that it happened. Well, he was supposed to be the custodian of the nephews, and it just weighed really heavily on him what happened was Shakespeare, in like 100 years after the event took place, and King Richard III portrayed him as an evil hunchback because Shakespeare was very popular with the Tudors, which took over after King Richard died, and he's very, very upset with the fact that he was framed for killing his nephews. His nephews were actually killed by Neville and Buckingham, if you're familiar with the history of it. In my chapters, I try to give a light history of what took place according to the history books so that you can compare it to what they tell us. And, he lays out exactly who killed his nephews, and it wasn't him.
Eric wants to know if you feel he is at peace since his body was found.
He's better off. He's better off. He told me that it took 500 years for somebody to listen to where his body was buried. So it's very difficult for spirits on the other side to communicate. And I think that's why we've been so blessed, is when we open these channels, they come through because they have a story to tell.
Let's fast forward a few decades to the murder or slaying of Robert Kennedy. Do you believe that the second Kennedy assassination was a conspiracy as well?
Yes. Yeah, the second Kennedy was it. Sirhan was a shooter, and he swears today that he has no memory of the event. But the guides have told us that he's lying, that he knows exactly, and he was part of it. But it ties into the assassination of his brother. They were just simply not. There weren't going to be any more Kennedys in public life at that time. They just made too many enemies.
Did Bobby expect at all that he was going to be murdered as well?
No, we did not. We didn't talk to him. We only got the Bobby Kennedy from what Jack told us. He did tell us that Bobby and his son were with him on the other side, but we never talked to those two spirits.
Do you believe then that it was a tie-in by the same group that killed both Kennedys?
Yes, I believe that. I don't think I'm sure they didn't want another Kennedy in the White House that fast. So I would say that it was the same group that was behind it.
Mm-hmm. And Sirhan, who you say does know,
yes,
that he did cause it.
Yeah,
what was his
very specific on that?
What was his actual role? How did he fall into this?
I'm not sure I can answer that one. I don't know. Generally, these guys get involved because the threats are made against their families, and it could well be that was what was behind it. But he did it with full knowledge and intention.
Was Jack Jr. also murdered?
Yes, he was.
Same group?
No, I don't think so. The guides told us that he had his accident because he was planning on reopening the investigation.
Wow. Was it a missile that hit him?
No, they tampered with his navigation equipment.
Sad.
Yeah. When you look at all the background with Junior, the stories just don't match up. It was actually a pretty nice day when his plane went down.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes. And by all his political stances, he was 40 years old, pretty much the same age as Dad, and he looked like he was starting to build up some political momentum on the Democratic side.
Yeah, I think he would have been running for president. I think it's part of the same reasoning. He was getting more and more power down there.
So, are you able to tell us the group that is behind these murders? Is it the mob? Is it the CIA?
Well, we're told it was the Chicago mob at the time.
Were they hired by anybody?
Well, yeah, they would have been hired by Johnson. See, Johnson had a lot of mob ties from his days in Texas because he fixed a lot of his elections down there. So he had the ties he needed to get the job done.
But Johnson was dead by the time Kennedy died.
Yeah, but it was still the same old...
Jack Jr.
Are you talking Jack Jr.?
Yeah, Jack Jr. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was on the wrong Kennedy. They did not want the investigation opened up because they didn't want to open sore wounds at that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I have heard from my own sources and people who've been on this show, there are two things that really, really piss off the government. One is talking about the intricacies behind JFK, and the other one behind 9/11. Anything else is apparently fair game. That's why the government really doesn't seem to care about anybody talking aliens anymore.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that confirmed by anybody on the other side that, these topics are just extremely taboo?
No. We actually, they told us that that President Bush was not aware of the 9/11 of the Twin Towers.
That surprises me.
Yeah. Yeah, they said they knew that something was going to take place, but they did not know what it was, and that he was not involved in it. That's the message they gave us.
Mm-hmm. So, are you able to talk 9/11 a little bit? I know this is kind of off script.
Yeah, we didn't go real after they told us that information. We didn't go real far into detail on it. We just kind of accepted that part of it. I did go back. I asked them whether a plane hit the Pentagon, and they said yes, it was an airplane. Because I saw the pictures, and I had the same doubts a lot of the other people do. But that's what they said. As I say in these things, I'm just the messenger, and don't shoot the messenger.
I hear you there. I still think it was a missile.
I thought so too, but that's not what we were told.
Getting back to JFK first, or Robert Kennedy, Joyce has a question for you.
Okay.
She says, recent domestic terrorists have been linked to potential military involvement in mind control. Could Sirhan have been an early example of this same theory?
It is possible, and we did ask that question, and they said he wasn't. He wasn't part of mind control, that he was just simply part of the conspiracy for some reason. We didn't really pursue it because I wound up, I was running out of book space, and I didn't bother putting the Bobby Kennedy thing in. So I didn't go as deep into it as I probably should have.
I can understand that. Do you think that out of the Kennedy killings, all three now, 9/11, are we going to see the truth come out in regards to what originally or what actually happened, whether it's 10 years, 50 years, 100 years from now?
I don't think so. I think it's so heavily buried. I mean, you'll see books will be written about it, and you'll see things like the book that came out last year on Johnson, but you will never see the government come out with a report saying what actually happened.
So when it comes to 9/11 then, what about Building 7?
Did not go into Building 7. I can't give you a definitive answer on that.
Damn it.
Sorry, I didn't ask.
Donna K says, "Hi, Dave. I just want to say hi to Barry." So I'm saying hi.
Oh, hi. Hi back. And
There you go,
you.
Donna. There you go. Thank you for listening, Donna. We really appreciate it. Make sure you give us a follow on Spreaker. I would appreciate that. Was 9/11 an inside job if George Bush didn't know about it?
No, it was an act of terrorism, is what they tell us.
Are you sure they're not reading the politically correct handbook on that?
They could this might be one where they're trying to cover my butt, but that's what they tell me.
I think your butt's being covered, my friend.
It could well be, and I was surprised at some of the answers. But as I say, I don't make this stuff up. What they give me, I print.
Mm-hmm. No, and I understand that, and all you are doing is you're telling their story. This really doesn't. If I'm reading this right, for the sake of our audience, I'm really, really thinking that you're just telling their story, and it's not about the information that you know or you suspect personally. It's about what they are telling you.
Exactly. I'll come into these situations with totally different understanding. Like, I expected the Twin Towers thing to be this big conspiracy that they'd tell me, and they just quieted it right down. I asked him if there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq before the first Gulf War. And they said, yes, there were. What happened to them? They said they were taken into Turkey and hidden. So, sometimes they answer what you think you're going to get, and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm. That has got to be a little bit annoying, lack of a better term.
As I say, you never know what's coming.
Mm-hmm. What do you tell the critics in regards to people out there who say you may be making this stuff up? Ouija boards don't work. Spirit boards don't work. Maybe Barry and Connie, you have overactive imaginations. What do you say to the critics?
I say they're entitled to their own opinion. They can go online and they can watch videos. I have a couple of videos posted on some of my websites. They can watch it take place. And, I mean, I don't have this kind of an imagination. I used to be a civil engineer. I'm not an imaginative person. I can't make up all this shit, believe me. It's just, if this wasn't told to me, I couldn't pass it on.
Mm-hmm. And yet, nobody has come knocking at your door. No weird phone calls or anything like that.
Well, this one's only been out 2 weeks. When I wrote the Alien book, everybody just probably thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably the first test.
I hear you. So when then you are getting this information, is there anything you edit out? Is there any place where you think, you know what, I just don't want to go there. I don't feel comfortable with that.
Absolutely. No, I know stuff that I don't put out there and won't put out. No, you got to use a little common sense here with this.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that you have to use a lot of common sense with it because in the end, you're just a person doing something interesting that not a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, it's just that there are probably more people doing it than you would imagine. And I mean, if somebody decided they wanted to silence me, there's other people doing it. It's just going to come it's just going to come somewhere, and they can only silence so many people.
Mm-hmm.
So there are more and more people aware of the veil between the living and the dead, and are becoming able to pierce that veil. The spirits want their stories told, and more people are capable of telling them. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person in the country that can do this. There's others. I talk to a lot of other people that are getting involved in board channeling. And, I mean, the old story is dead men tell no tales, but the spirits do. The bodies don't, but the spirit does. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's becoming more and more obvious of the existence of the spirit world and their ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Is the information offered freely? Have they given you pertinent information that they say, look, we're going to tell you this, but we don't want that going in the book? That's just for you?
There are times that we've been told that, yeah.
Without going into detail of a certain scenario, can you give us an example of what happens there?
We were told of a master guide that returned and came back. He was sent back with a mission of doing great good, and his ego took over, and he just went berserk and created just terrible havoc with his life, when his whole intent and life plan was just totally counter to what happened. So the best laid plans of mice, men, and spirits can go astray.
Do you think then, or is there some sort of verbal contract that you have had to, I don't want to use the word sign because there's nothing really to sign, but have you had to verbally give a promissory note or give your word that you're going to tell that information verbatim or keep certain information quiet?
Quite often I'll ask a question and they just refuse to answer it. And that's their believe me, that's their most efficient way. But if they tell me, not to use the information, I won't use it. They will tell, and I generally end work sessions by asking if they have messages for people, for my newsletter or for something I should say on the radio. And they will give me specific messages that they want me to put out. And when they give me those messages, I make darn sure that I get them out there.
Aren't you just a generous fellow, Barry? Generosity!
That's me.
Have you had any spirits that wouldn't talk to you that you've inquired to?
We've had spirits we couldn't contact that wouldn't come back. Sometimes two things will happen. There are multiple realms on the other side, so a soul can advance over there, and it's possible for them to advance to the point where they can't come back to us. Another thing that will happen is they simply can refuse if they don't want to talk.
On that note, before that gets any louder, we're going to hop out for a quick break here on the Mighty SOR. Barry Strohm is with us. We got one more hour with Barry and Connie on talking channeling and some of the great spirits that they have communicated with through the Spirit Board. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back with our final break of the night right now.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Space Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy. And I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night, we're going into the paranormal again. Sam Baltrusis, paranormal author, The 13 Most Haunted, will be with us. We're going to talk about hauntings, his book, as well as, coming up in May, the Provincetown Paracon, where myself and the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, will be speaking. It's going to be an exciting time. I believe Everett Thiemer, along with Eric Markham, is going to be there as well with me. So if you're on the East Coast, I would love to meet up with you. And you can come say hello, hi, how are you, introduce yourself. Because I love meeting listeners, man. I love it. So if you get the opportunity to head to the Provincetown Paracon in May 12th to 14th, I would love to have you come speak. I'm at noon. Ronald Murphy is at 9 a.m. That's Eastern time. So make sure you come check it out. And be sure to listen to Sam tomorrow night at spacedoutradio.com, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time, right here, right now. Hey, we want to thank everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We want to also welcome in everyone listening in on Renegade Talk Radio as we are live in Las Vegas right here, right now. And if you're listening in on your United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world, good to have you along for this ride as well. Thank you so much for tuning us in. Bill Cardwell has the password set for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Grandiloquence is your password. Grandiloquence. Make sure you use it wisely. And it looks like it would be a really good score on Scrabble as well. So you might want to try and set that one up. Grandiloquence. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show. Make sure all your questions are in capital letters. I would appreciate that. Makes it easy for me to ask our guests. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. Barry Strohm and his wife Connie are with us. They are channelers. Barry's been on the show numerous times, and we welcome them back. Barry, during the first hour, we had a little bit of a paranormal experience happen.
Yes.
When you had some, I don't know what it was, come flying off a closet shelf. Explain again what happened there.
Well, we were sitting here talking to you, and I was telling the story of a girl saying hi to me, a ghost saying hi to me when I was locking the store up the other night. And just as I was saying that, a necklace display piece came flying off the top of the shelf, which is about 8 feet in the air, and hit the floor right by Connie, just as I was talking about it. And everybody on the radio heard the thud of this thing hitting, and you could have probably heard us jumping in our chairs when we heard the thing hit. It came off a level shelf, and there was no way Mother Gravity could have knocked that down. So during the break, Connie and I have the board set up here. So she wanted to try to find out who it was. So she asked if the spirit was here that had knocked the thing off, and the answer came back yes. She asked for the name, and it spelled out Ann, A-N-N. And then I said, Ann, are you the one that said hi to me the other night? And it spelled out yes. So we still apparently have our female friend here, and she was answering questions for us on the board during the break.
So what brought her forward? Was it the radio show, or that you guys are still in the building?
Just that we're here. She just, wants our spirits want people to be aware of their presence. Sometimes they get lonely over there and just want the humans to talk to them. There's only a little dimensional veil between us. It's not a big deal. They're very close. Most people don't understand just how close the spirits are.
So, when it comes to aliens and spirits, you believe, well, you have proof through your channeling of Mu, that extraterrestrials have spirits as well that can communicate.
Yes, Mu told us that they have that we all have the same souls, the same soul energy. And one way to think of this thing that might help prove the point. Your soul energy has been here, forever? It's been created, who knows how long ago it's been here. Your soul energy's probably been around for a billion years. It wasn't just created when you were born, because you have all these prior lives. I mean, I've traced my prior life back to 3500 BC, that far. So your soul energy's been around for a long time. So the human race has only been on here for 200,000 years? So where do you think your soul energy was before the human race was established here? And we're told that aliens actually helped seed humans on this earth. Well, the answer is your soul reincarnated on other planets thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago. So your soul's been around many, many places that you have absolutely no memory of. And as long as you're on this side of the veil, you won't know that. When you go over on the other side, then you get access and you look at your prior lives and you decide what you want to do in the future.
Are extraterrestrial spirits easier to contact?
They're about the same. We haven't had any trouble talking to them, and sometimes I'm not aware when we got an extraterrestrial or whether we have a human soul guide. I mean, the soul energies are the same, and you can't tell the difference. I know the other night we couldn't get through to Mu. He's somewhere else. He told us he was on another planet doing a mission when we had him a couple months ago, and the spirit energy that we had was just as knowledgeable about things going on out there as Mu was. So I'm assuming that he was another alien soul energy that we were conversing with.
When you first started contact with Mu, did he approach you, or did you just kind of run into him through the board?
I was asking questions of our ordinary guides, alien questions, and they were not able to answer them. So they said that we are going to introduce you to another spirit that can answer all your questions because he is an alien. And they brought him in and introduced us to him, and then he committed to helping me write 2 books, which we're coming to the end of. And I hope we don't lose contact with him, but I fear that's what's starting to take place since the second book's finished.
So you think he's almost saying my mission with you is done, and now quietly he's phasing you out?
They have missions that they have to carry out, and we asked him if he would stay in contact after we finished the book, and he said that he would stay in contact with us. But he told us initially that we had him for a couple of years, and then he would move on to another mission, or possibly he's getting ready to reincarnate.
That's a possibility, too.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have other spirits, then, that would be stepping up to take his place? Does it work that way?
Yes. I asked the question one night. I said, how many guides do I have? And the answer came back, as many as you need. And we have gone through many, many guides. As we get into different subject areas, we always start a session by asking the name of the guide that we're working with. Sometimes we'll get a name will come in that we don't recognize. We always ask if they're of God and if they're a guide. And if they answer those two, then we'll start getting on with our question list.
Mm-hmm. How often do you do this?
It depends. Sometimes we'll do it 2-3 times a week. Sometimes it'll be a couple of weeks till we get time to do it. All depends on my schedule. We're here at the store 7 days a week, and you have to have good energy. And so if Connie and I are tired, and we are pretty old, so we do get tired a lot. If we're tired, we don't do it. We try to generally do it when we're in a good emotional mood and where we have good energy, because they have to read our energies.
Mm-hmm. That I totally understand in regards to it, because, you want to go in on a positive note. You don't want to be hanging any personal drama or anything along those lines.
No, if I'm depressed about something that happened, the letters come slow. There's more mistakes, and it's just if we refer to it as trying to raise your vibrations. The better the mood you're in, the higher your soul vibrates, and the better your vibration level, the better the messages are going to come through for you. The faster and easier you receive them.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get back to what you have channeled. And you have gone as far back for the religious types of Mary Magdalene.
Yes. Yes, we have asked, we have had guides come in, and we have asked many questions about Mary, and I'm very, very interested in information in the Lost Gospels, because when the Bible when the Gospels were selected in 325, the Roman Emperor Constantine was actually behind what books were chosen. We channeled with Pope Sylvester I, that was the Catholic Pope at the time of the selections of the Gospels, and he was very emphatic about just how much information was left out of the books. All of the Gnostic Gospels were eliminated for political reasons. Constantine actually selected the books, and then he would have all of the delegates that were at the convention vote on it, and if anybody voted against that gospel, he would be exiled. So Constantine totally ruled what actually is the Bible that we read today, the New Testament. The Lost Gospels are incredibly interesting. Mary Magdalene herself had her own gospel, and it was not allowed to be put in because obviously she was a woman, and men ruled everything at the time that the Gospels were selected. So one of the most knowledgeable Gospels was actually ordered to be destroyed. It was found, portions of the Gospel were found, and probably half of it is still missing. But you can actually get copies of translations of her Gospel and read it. When we asked the questions of the guides, we asked, first of all, if Mary was a disciple, and they said yes. Another of the Lost Gospels, the Gospel of Peter, stipulates that Peter was actually jealous of Mary because Jesus gave her special treatment and was actually seen kissing her on the lips. So there was definitely a personal relationship between Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And 18 years of Jesus' life is missing. And during that time, he was a man, and you have to assume that he was married, and we are told he actually had children during those 18 years. So there's an incredible amount of information out there to be learned, and I'm quietly chipping away in my spare time in some of these sessions at trying to get some of this information back.
Mm-hmm. That is such a controversial topic because so many people, are going to fight that. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't want to go there. A lot of people...
Oh, my God. I mean, it's heresy is the best way to describe it. Now, we have people coming in here telling us just that we shouldn't be doing this. It's evil. The information we're getting is that our demons are giving us this information. And most of the information we get is of love and just very good, warm, God-fearing messages. And the stuff we get is not coming from demons. But Jesus was a man. I mean, we asked the guides on many occasions if Jesus was Son of God. The answer comes back, you are all sons of God. I'm a son of God. Connie is a son of God. And but
he was extra special.
And it's just, he was an extra special teacher. And he, they do say that the resurrection took place as it is stated in the Bible. And a lot of what's in is true, but there's an awful lot of information in that Bible that was put in by man that is not indicative of a loving God.
Couple questions for you. Canadian Joe on hashtag Space Out Radio. Excuse me. Canadian Joe at hashtag Space Out Radio wants to know if you've ever channeled Christ himself. No. As I say, we did have the Blessed Mother for one long statement one night, but no, we never have. We've channeled many saints, many very high-ranking guides, but we have never channeled with Jesus himself. Would you try? I don't think so. I just don't feel. I just don't feel that a common person like myself would be honored by having him come through. Eric would like to know, was the Gospel of Judas real? Yes. Judas committed suicide afterwards, but all of these Gospels were written about them. Very few of them were written by. Revelations was written by John, but most of the Gospels were written after the fact. And there was a Gospel of Judas, yes. Do we know where that is now? No, not specifically. I don't. I'm not familiar with that one. A lot of them a lot of them were found in 1945, or like 19 codices found then. And I'm really not sure if the Gospel of Judas was among it. It could have been. I'm doing a lot of reading on it right now, but I just don't have as much information as I should. Mm-hmm. I like this comment by John at hashtag Space Out Radio. There are no lost Gospels. They're in the Vatican. Well, some of them are. And, the Vatican has the largest collection of metaphysical items in the world. So there's another trivia for you. So they could well be there. Let's get to another question here. Trip is asking, will the Book of Q ever be released to the world? I'm not familiar with it. Me either. All right, let's continue on here. John at hashtag Spaced Out Radio wants to know if you've ever contacted anybody from the 27 Club, like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, etc.
No. If you can talk to St. Bartholomew, Kurt Cobain never occurred to me. As I get into this new book on the unsolved crimes, I'm going to do Kurt Cobain, yes. But not yet. I haven't got to it.
Does the 27 Club interest you at all?
I'm not familiar with it.
That's where all of these musicians have weirdly passed away at the age of 27?
Oh. No, I just thought maybe that's just prime time for drugs.
It's amazing when you go through the list. There's well over 100.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It would be a great book for you. I'm just giving you a hint there.
Oh my God. I'm supposed to write 11 books and I've got 5. I'm through 5 now, so.
Well, now I've just given you a topic for number 6.
Oh, thank you. That's what I need, another topic.
Yeah. Like there aren't enough there already. I understand. I'm sure you have it all planned out, but I think if you looked into the 27 Club, you would absolutely think, wow, this is something I need to do.
I will check on it.
Thank you.
I will definitely check on it.
That would be awesome. Continuing on, you've had some very, very interesting experiences, and you touched on it a little bit earlier on in the show about General George Patton.
Yes.
Now, it was always believed that he died in an automobile accident in Germany, but the board says differently.
The board says far differently, and I know the first time I was with him, I was having a very hard time believing what he told me. And he was very, very emphatic that he wanted to get his story out and have his story told. And his story bears no relationship to what's in the history books. Apparently, he was made a paraplegic in Germany. They attempted to kill him, but that he survived for another 18 years and actually died in the 1960s. That he was basically kept a prisoner for that time. And the story was so unbelievable that after the first session I went back and I started to do a lot more research onto it. And I made up all these very, very detailed questions for him. He told me answers like the addresses of where he was kept. He told me the name of the nurse that cared for him, events that took place, how his life actually did end when it ended, that he was buried at sea. He said that the big grave over in Germany is empty, that his body is not in it. Told me what happened as part of the conspiracy. I threw trick questions at him. I intentionally changed numbers and things, and every time I'd do it, he would catch me on it. He was very, very sharp. And at the end of the second session that I had with him, I thanked him for coming through for me. I really appreciated the information. And he finished the session by saying, "Son, I selected you." And I went, I don't know what that means. And very few people, I was 72 at the time, so I didn't think son was too... I guess when you're on the other side, you look at things differently. Mm-hmm. So I asked my guides, I said, why did he come through and select me like that? And the answer was that our souls had been together in prior lifetimes. I asked, how many times have our souls been together? And the guide comes back and says, you were together in 5 lifetimes. In 1100 AD, George Patton's soul and my soul were brothers in the Persian army and fought together. In another lifetime, apparently he was my uncle. And then we were associated in 3 others sometime through history. But somehow or other, Patton realized that I could open we had the ability to open this channel and get the information, and that I would take it and get it published and put it out there for everybody to read. His story is one of the most unbelievable stories in the book. And I mean, you actually have to read it and you'll shake your head and you'll say, there's no way this could have taken place. But when you look at the details and everything that he gave me, it certainly adds up. So I printed it exactly as he told it to me. He had a very low respect for Winston Churchill and Eisenhower and a lot of the others. It seemed as though after the war, after it ended in European theater, Patton came back, gave speeches, and was just accepted as this wonderful hero. And he had the ability probably to run for president and would have probably been elected because he was so popular after what he did with his Third Army. Eisenhower sent him back over and basically gave him a desk job to keep him out of the way, and rejected him for going into the Pacific Theater, which is what he really wanted to do, so he could continue fighting. So he made up his mind. When an officer retires from the armed forces, and you take a retirement, you're limited into what you can say against your fellow officers. So what he was going to do is he was going to quit the Army so that he could come back to the United States and say what he wanted to say. And he was going to indict a lot of the officers because he had the ability with his Third Army to take Berlin. And he was intentionally held from going into Berlin so that the Soviets could come in. And he actually wanted to go to war with the Soviets because he realized what was going to take place in the post-war times. But our president was committed to the United Nations and working with the Soviets, and that's why they gave him that portion of Berlin. So he was incredibly upset, and his plan was he was going to come back, tell everybody what he thought, and probably run for president. And this is not what was going to be allowed to take place. And there was this huge conspiracy, and he was involved in a minor accident, and they actually broke his neck so that he was a paraplegic. And he did not die, and they kept him alive for almost 18 years after that. It's an incredible story. As I say, it's probably the hardest one to believe that's in the book.
Was he upset that he never got to come home?
He did get to come home. Unfortunately, he didn't die over there. They brought his body back over here and kept him alive for 18 years.
But I mean, every soldier wants that hero's welcome, right?
Yeah. No, he was upset by a lot of things. There's much more made him upset than that. The way he was treated as one of the greatest generals we ever had. I mean, it was an inside job that planned to have him killed over there.
That's terrible to think that in that type of situation where so much has happened, that there's still personal issues that kind of take place.
He's bound and determined that he is going to find justice while he's still on the other side. Now, he's planning on reincarnating and coming back. And I think me writing this chapter is a huge part of him finding the justice that he's looking for.
Incredible. Did he tell you when he's going to come back?
No, but it's going to be in the near future. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that bodes well for us because he generally comes back when there's a major war to be fought.
Butch Cassidy.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody knows the famous movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. What happened when you channeled him?
Well, we asked for his presence, and he comes through. And I said to him, would you like me to call you Butch? And he goes, no, call me Leroy. Well, his right name is Leroy Parker. That's his middle name. So he was incredibly intelligent. Butch Cassidy, or Leroy Parker, was probably the most intelligent outlaw in the West. He pulled off all these major bank robberies. He would work for weeks to get his escape routes, and he'd have horses waiting, and it was just incredible what he pulled off. And in all the time that he was an outlaw, he never killed anybody. And when I talked to him, he was very, very proud of the fact that he never had to kill anyone in all the robberies that he carried out. He had what was known as the Wild Bunch and the Sundance Kid, and the movie was made about him, and everybody knows that he died in Bolivia. And except for one little thing, he staged his death in Bolivia. He told us how he did it. He hired members of the Bolivian army, and they pretended to kill him. And the story is that he was surrounded and killed in 1908 because the Pinkerton detectives were on his trail. He pulled a robbery of the Great Northern Railroad in 1901, in which he took over $60,000. Today, that is the equivalent of almost $1.7 million. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. The railroad hires the Pinkertons, and they just were hounding him, and he decided they had to leave. So he goes to Argentina. They bought a ranch down there. Unfortunately, he couldn't resist robbing trains, so he started to rob some trains in Argentina. And he was forced to go to Bolivia, where he staged his death. In reality, he doesn't die until 1936, comes back to the United States, and becomes a businessman, and actually dies in the state of Washington. Very, very cool guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. Just very matter of fact, very down to earth, and he was one of my favorites.
Couple questions coming in from our audience here. Eric is asking, was Patton King Arthur in a previous incarnation? Because he seems to come around during times of great unrest.
If he was, he didn't mention it. I can vouch for him in 1100. I don't think he was King Arthur, because I think I was with him. I was supposed to be with him then. But he never mentioned being King Arthur. But he was always a military leader. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Trip wants to know, was Merlin also Moses?
I do not know. I do know this. Moses was a very, very advanced guide. They view Moses as being a son of God, very similar to Jesus as a teacher and a leader. Because I asked if there were any other sons of God that were ever put on earth, and Moses was on the list.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Canadian Joe wants to know what hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Have you ever channeled Julius Caesar?
No. Nope, haven't tried him.
Do you like the Roman times?
Yeah, they're incredibly interesting. The Romans are responsible for the Romans are responsible for the Bible that everybody reads. Roman influence is far greater than most people even understand.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on here, because this is a lot of fun tonight. I think we can spend a few minutes on this one. The Battle of Little Bighorn and George Custer, tells all.
Yeah, George Custer. I've been drawn to the Battle of Little Bighorn. Been out there a couple times and felt really right at home with it. And I've always been interested in military stuff, the Gettysburg and all the great battles. So I decided I wanted to write a chapter on the Little Bighorn, find out what happened. So we asked for the presence of George Custer, and he comes, and he was the absolute personality that you would lead to believe. He was very officious, definitely was in control of the interview. When he came in, one of the questions he asked me, he said, "Are you a Yankee?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." Because I think if I had said I was a Confederate, he would have said no. And I actually wrote about him in my, excuse me, I wrote about him in my first book, Honing the History of the Battle of Gettysburg, because Custer fought at Gettysburg. And I told him, I said, I wrote about you in my first book, and I said, you had 3 horses shot out from under you at Gettysburg. And his answer was, "Who's counting?" Which, would have been typical for the way he would have answered things. So anyway, we do this whole interview with him, ask him a lot of questions about the battle, ask him if he trusted his Indian scouts. The answer was no. Ask him when he realized the size of the Indian village. He said when he topped the coulee after Reno was engaged in the fighting. Ask him what happened, where he was shot. Well, he was actually wounded when he was leading the charge across the Little Bighorn, where he was trying to attack the village. Reno was fighting off on the one side of the battlefield, and he attacks the village. And there's only about 10 Braves between him and the village, because all the Braves were up fighting with Reno. And an Indian by the name of White Cowboy fires a shot and hits one of the soldiers dressed in buckskins, and the soldier, who turns out to be Custer, falls into the creek, and they stop the charge, and they load him back up on his horse. And by this time, the Indians are rallying, and they chase him back up to what becomes Last Stand Hill. But he's actually wounded before the fighting up on Last Stand Hill, and at the end of the battle, he gets killed with a shot to the temple. And I asked him, I'm asking him, first I asked if he saw Sitting Bull on the other side, and he said, yes, he sees him all the time, and he's a very nice soul, a very good soul. Then I asked him if he saw Crazy Horse on the other side, and he said no, because he believes Crazy Horse is the one that killed him. So he doesn't see him over there. But we had a great conversation. He told me all the secrets of the battle. Went back and photographed a lot of the places he told me that were on private property back there. And it's a real good story. And then to make it a little bit more binding, I asked, one night we're doing a channeling session, and I asked the guides, I said, why am I drawn to the Little Bighorn? Why do I feel so at home when I'm out there? And the answer comes back from the guide, because you fought there. And I went, what? I said, what was I there? And the answer comes back, an Indian scout. And I said, was I killed? There were 33 scouts present at the Battle of Little Bighorn, of which about 6 were killed. And the answer comes back, no, you survived the battle. And I said, well, what was my name out there? Because I wanted to research it after I heard this. So they come back and they say, Yellow Cloud, but the soldiers called you Billy. Okay? Well, if you go into the list of the Indian scouts that fought at the Little Bighorn, you'll find that there's a Lakota half-breed translator whose name was Billy Cross. And I asked them, once I did the research and found this, I came back and asked the guides. And I said, was that my name in prior? And the guide's answer comes back, yes. So apparently in one of my priors, I was a 15-year-old Indian scout that was present at the Battle of Little Bighorn and survived it. And you can actually go online, and there's a site where a reporter interviewed Billy Cross 2 years after the battle. And I can go online and actually read the interview of what role I played in the battle. I was part of a group of scouts that were supposed to scatter the Indian horses. And actually, when the worst of the fighting, I was heading the other direction. But sometimes discretion's a better part of valor. I have a page on my website that tells the whole story that you can go in and read about it. It proves reincarnation of my prior life. But it's a cool story.
You mentioned that Custer was wounded previous to that. Was he wounded to a point where he was going to die off of that, or was it just a flesh wound type of injury?
No, it would have proved to be a mortal wound. He was hit in the abdomen. Custer had 2 wounds where all the other bodies of the soldiers were mutilated. His wasn't, because in 1873 he led that excursion into the Black Hills where he actually had a child by a Sioux squaw. So they considered him as being Sioux family, even though he was fighting against them. So that's why they did not mutilate his body. But when they found his body, he had a bullet wound to the abdomen and one to the temple. And the abdomen wound was what occurred when he was crossing the Little Bighorn Creek.
Couple questions coming from our audience. Have you ever tried to channel Nikola Tesla?
No, but he's on my list. He is definitely on my not too far in the future list.
What do you hope to get out of that?
I need to do some research, but I want to. There was he was an absolutely amazing individual, and I'm going to ask him. Yeah, I'm really not sure what I'm going to question him, but I know that there are many, many questions to ask of him. He was an incredible, brilliant man.
Mm-hmm. I would like to know if he was murdered.
I will ask that question.
What about Einstein?
And if so, who?
What about Einstein?
I have asked some questions about Einstein. As a matter of fact, his grandfather was a Palladian.
That would make sense.
Mm-hmm. That's why he had this great intelligence, and that's actually he had the ability to communicate with them, and they would give him information. He is the one that originated the ideas of the wormhole, that concept. The aliens gave him that concept.
How about any famous artists like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci?
Nope, haven't tried any of those yet. But all things are possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you say that you cannot, or you have to be careful about the future, but Robert, all the way in Australia, is asking.
Okay.
Barry, have you ever thought of sending messages to future incarnations to let him know where the items of importance might have been hidden by past selves? And I'm assuming because we were talking about, General Custer there. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. Sometimes
I'm not sure I understand that one.
Well, let's just make it into, and I apologize, Robert, I'm butchering your question here. Okay, but let's just make it into, would you ever send a message to a future incarnation of yourself?
It never occurred to me. I'm told that my future lives are already planned, but they never gave me much more detail than that.
Like, say, for instance, let's say your next incarnation is in a century from now. Would you ever think of maybe putting a life box somewhere? Like, maybe that includes ID, money, photos of the family, maybe your favorite T-shirt, and like set it aside, bury it in the ground somewhere where you know that it should be safe, and then tell yourself in the future, this is where it is?
It never occurred to me, but it's a pretty cool idea.
Would that mess with the future?
I don't think so. They tell me a lot of stuff. They told us that when Connie and I are on the other side, we're actually guides, and that is, with our whole, what we're doing now has been totally laid out when we were on the other side, and that we are supposed to be coming back to do this, and when we go back over, we'll act as guides until we decide to reincarnate again.
Have you ever looked into any of the controversial figures that have been supposedly taken out? Example, Phil Schneider.
No, haven't checked him out. He's on my list for the next book.
That would be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. Give me a list of some of the questions you got. I could, if it fits in, I'll check it out.
Well, we'll definitely get you a list beforehand, because I know we kind of butchered it this time around. How far in advance do you need this list for us to get to you?
I'd say a couple, 3 weeks. Because sometimes I ask, if not, then I go back again in another session with a different guide, if I'm not satisfied with the answers. But I'll chip away at it. Get it to me in plenty of time. And because what happens is I get answers, then I go in and research and expand on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a process. It's not just something you do one time.
No, very understandable. I might even ask if I could sit in with you on Skype on that. That would be kind of cool.
No, I got no problem with that. I'll set the camera. I set the camera up on the board, and you can see the answers coming in.
Well, that would be great. Do you normally do your channeling at night or during the day? Do you find that there's a difference as to when the spirits come through better?
Well, we're stronger in the morning when our energy's up, but unfortunately we're tied down here at the store all day. So for it to be quiet, we have to usually do it in the evenings. So we generally, what we do is get dinner, relax a little bit, and then start up about 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to join you. I'm not gonna lie, I do have to join you one day on that. We only got about 7 minutes left. I'm very curious to get your take on Sasquatch, because we've been talking a lot about Sasquatch here recently.
Uh-huh. Well, I thought Brother Bigfoot was just a storybook. So one night I'm channeling, and I asked the guy, and I said, does Bigfoot really exist? And he comes back and he says, would you believe me if I said yes? And I said, well, if you say yeah, then I'm in. So he said, well, yes, they do exist. So I went back, did some research, and asked a bunch of questions. And my main question was, why do we never find their bodies? And they said do not find their bodies because they live in a different dimensional world, that they can move between an unseen dimension and our dimension, and that they're actually afraid of humans. And they have the ability to just drop back into that unseen dimension because humans scare them. And if something happens to one, they drag them back, and that's why we don't find the bodies. But they're very real. They tell us that there's many more of them than we really believe there are, that they're an ape-like species, that they're just not as developed as humans. They actually fear humans, and that's why they drop back and go into that unseen dimension.
Mm-hmm. Are they from here?
Yeah. They're like a subspecies of apes that they've evolved through time. They've been here a long, long time.
Why do they then seem to have some sort of supernatural type power to go in between interdimensional areas?
It's just, I don't know how they got the ability, but keep in mind, many aliens are in that same dimension unseen. I mean, some are totally in that unseen dimension that have never been seen by humans, yet they're still around you.
So when you have Bigfoot out there that is running around the forest, do we know how many there are?
He said that there are many, and they're in all parts of the world. And he did say the day will come that they do find the body of one, and it won't be too far in the future.
Or do they already have a body, but it's being covered up?
That's quite possible, too. But he said there will be a body discovered before too long.
John at hashtag Space Out Radio is asking, how often do you or can you contact the other side?
I can basically do it anytime I want. It's just kind of like this matter of convenience when we want to do it. We're thinking about offering the opportunity for Skype sessions with individuals in the near future. Connie and I are thinking about taking a couple hours a week and offering sessions with people over Skype. But we have done it with people as far away as South Africa already.
Do you have a large following that wants to do this with you?
We got some, yeah. I'm almost afraid to open the door because time is a premium for us. That's really why we've been holding off, because we don't want. We can't do this stuff every night. It's just we're too old.
Are you training any replacements?
We have worked with several psychics here in the area. We have some people that have advanced that are very good on the board, and there are some that will probably be doing it in the future here.
In the future, what happens to your board?
Well, we're going to keep doing it as long as we can. But we thoroughly enjoy it, and it's just such an incredible education for us. As I say, I think I'm supposed to write 6 more books, so that's going to take quite a bit of channeling.
Excellent. Well, we got to keep that up. Let's get to one final topic. We got about 3 minutes left with you. How about Billy the Kid? A great way to end it.
Yeah, this is a cool story. Billy the Kid was not killed by Pat Garrett. Garrett was in the town where he was supposedly killed. Billy and his friend come into town, and he's told that Pat Garrett and his deputies are there. Billy is with a friend. He was quite a ladies' man. His buddy wants a piece of. There was a butchering at the place where Pat Garrett is hanging out. Well, his buddy does not realize Garrett's there, and his friend wants to get a piece of the beef off the side that's hanging at this house. He goes over to cut this side of beef. It's dark. Garrett mistakes him for the kid and kills him, shoots him in the back. Well, all of a sudden, now Garrett's got a real problem because he's just killed an innocent guy. So he comes out and says that this is Billy the Kid, and they got the kid buried by noontime the next day. Well, Billy the Kid actually gets in a gunfight with him and escapes. And this is after he kills his buddy, so they know something's going on. But Pat Garrett misleads everybody into thinking that he's killed the kid. The kid goes to Mexico, heals up from some of the wounds that he gets in the gunfight, and comes back into the United States, and actually for a time is with the Bill Cody Wild West show. Kid goes on, lives a normal life, and shows up at the age of 70 as Bushy Bob or Bushy Bill it is, I think. and confesses that he's Billy the Kid, and they do a study, and he's got like 30 wounds that the kid would have had, and the whole story was made up. The kid actually dies I think he winds up dying in the state of Texas at the age, he's in the 70s, of a heart attack. The thing that intrigues me the most in what we've gotten involved with is just how many conspiracies are out there. Just how much the history books are screwed up. That's one reason why I wanted to write this book. And people, when they read Spirits Speak, they're going to say that I'm crazy, that I'm nuts, that this stuff could have never taken place. But feel free to go in and do your own research. And I think you'll be amazed at how much of the stuff you can actually back up that appears in this book.
Interesting. My friend, where can everybody find your books?
You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Amazon. You can go onto my website. If you buy it on my website, I'll send you a personally signed copy of it for whatever that's worth. It's out there. It's not too hard to find. All 4 of my books are online for sale or on my website. And my website is spiritspredict.com. Spiritspredict.com. There's a lot of cool stuff to see on the site. A lot of photography, a lot of stories. There's even the story of the reincarnation of our pet cat. So we channeled our cat for 2 years before he showed up for us.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on the website. It's worth looking at. And it's all free. Except my book.
My friend, you and Connie, hold on. I got to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Space Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL playing in the background. Little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. He brings us in and takes us home every single night. Tomorrow night on the program, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, I will be back in the hot seat to finish out the week. Author Sam Baltrusis will join us. We're talking true crime. We're talking hauntings, the paranormal, and of course, the Provincetown Paracon, where I will be speaking at May 12th to 14th. Yes, that's just a couple of months away. I've never been to Boston. I'm looking forward to that, even though I'm a Yankee fan, but don't tell them. I hope every one of you on the East Coast who listens to this show will come on out to that event to meet me. I want to meet you. I speak at noon. Thank you so much for listening in to Barry Strohm, Connie Strohm, and myself tonight. Your chat room questions were phenomenal, and the action on Twitter was fantastic as well. Keep up the great work. We'll talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Now, hopefully, I don't have to dig out of any more snow. 1.5 foot dropped today. So, we're out of here. You guys have a good one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.